Hello there, my friends. Welcome to Careers Without 4 Years. I'm Melanie Dunn. I'm a workforce development professional, and this podcast is for anyone who wants to find out where the opportunity is in today's job market for great careers that don't require 4-year degrees. The economy has changed. Today, most jobs don't require bachelor's degrees. We'll hear from professionals in technology, healthcare, the trades, and other industries who love what they do and make a good living at it. In addition, we'll learn how to shop for affordable training, how to pay for it with grants and loans without excessive costs or debt, or even find free training. And if you are a woman or person of color, please listen in for inspiring stories by people who are thriving in careers you may not have seen yourself in. One thing we're doing in this podcast is showing people where the opportunity is in the job market for great careers that don't require 4-year degrees. And research shows that people with a career path are more likely to complete their training. But in addition to career education, I think most people could use some help with financial education and even some consumer protection. This is because I've met many people who are taken advantage of by unscrupulous education providers. They ended up in debt with irrelevant or worthless degrees, and I don't want that to happen to you. And also, if you're going to pay tuition, I'd like to help you shop smart so that you can make the most of the free money out there for education and get the lowest rate for any debt you assume. In this episode, you'll learn why filling out the FAFSA is the first step you should take when considering applying to college or trade school, about New Jersey's Community College Opportunity Grant and ways to find other grants to pay for college or trade school, even if you were an average student. And even if you do not reside in New Jersey, you will get something out of today's episode. Although their programs and qualifications are unique to each state, 17 states provide free community college, including California, Arkansas, Delaware, Maryland, Indiana, and Kentucky. And finally, if you're an immigrant, you'll find out if you qualify for the New Jersey Dreamers Grant. My guest today is David Socolow, Executive Director of HESA, the Higher Education Student Assistance Authority. HESA is the only New Jersey state agency with the sole mission of providing students and families with financial and informational resources for students to pursue their education beyond high school. David leads HESA's implementation of New Jersey's Community College Opportunity Grant that was piloted in 2019 and signed into law permanently by Governor Phil Murphy in 2021. The Community College Opportunity Grant provides free tuition to New Jersey's 18 community colleges for full-time and part-time students. Since 2018, HESA has also administered the expansion of state financial aid to cover undocumented immigrants who qualify as New Jersey Dreamers. Throughout his career, David has advanced the success of students and working families. Immediately prior to joining HESA, he was the director of the Center for Post-Secondary and Economic Success at CLASP, a national nonprofit policy advocacy organization, where he led initiatives to help low-income individuals attain the credentials they need to secure high-quality jobs by developing comprehensive career pathways and by improving access and affordability to post-secondary education and workforce training. He served as Commissioner of the New Jersey Department of Labor and Workforce Development from 2006 to 2010. Here's the interview. Hi, David. Thanks for joining us on the show today.
Thanks for having me.
So to begin at the beginning of the process here, can you tell us why we should go to the state first for financial assistance and where we would begin?
Sure, and thanks for that question. And yeah, it's very important for students to know the real price before they go, know before you go to any kind of training provider, whether it's college or vocational training or a credential program that may be offered in a post-secondary setting. And the most important thing to know is what exactly is the cost, and also what's the help you can get from the cost to pay the cost. New Jersey Higher Ed Student Assistance Authority, the agency that I lead, has financial assistance that is grants and scholarships. And that's words that mean you don't have to pay the money back. That's free money that if you meet the qualifications and you're eligible, it'll help you pay for those training programs and college without having to pay it back. There is another whole thing called student loans, which you do have to pay back. And there are a variety of different forms of student loans. Mm-hmm. And it's very important that you know the difference, whether what you're taking out for the pay for the program is a grant or a loan. And so we can provide advice when you're looking at any program to see what that financing looks like and what the terms of the assistance you're getting, whether it is really financial aid or whether it's a loan, which is not financial aid. A loan is something you have to pay back.
Well, can I ask you also, a grant, does that mean that I have to be a great student?
The grants have all different programs. Some of them are based on need, financial need. And so you have to meet satisfactory mm-hmm. academic progress to continue getting the grant. You can't fail out. But if you do start out and attempt the school, it will pay for that tuition and you don't have to pay it back. If you continue and you're making satisfactory academic progress, you can get another grant for the next class or the next term or the next semester and the next year, et cetera. And so they have continuing requirements when they're need-based. There also are merit-based scholarships, merit-based grants, which do require a certain minimum GPA or maybe require other academic performance. And so that's often the distinction between a grant, which is usually need-based, and a scholarship, which typically is based on meeting a minimum threshold of how you did in school before you got that scholarship.
Okay, so what you're saying, I think, is that then if I am applying for a grant and say, I don't know, I was a C student or a B student somewhere, and yet, so maybe I don't know if I would get a scholarship, but if I have can demonstrate financial need, and you'll tell us kind of how that works in New Jersey, which has a great program, by the way, everyone, then I can get some assistance from the state and I'm not borrowing money.
That's right. Grants are money you don't have to pay back. It's not borrowed. And the need-based grants are based on financial need. If you've been admitted to that school, and you're eligible based on your finances, then you're going to get that grant. And so that is obviously, if the school has rules of who they let in based on how you did in school before that, that's admissions. But once you've been admitted, or for some of these programs, they're open admissions, you just have to have a high school diploma. And those programs you can get the grants at. And so there's a wealth of programs that you can get financial assistance to pay some, or in some cases, all of the cost of the fees and the tuition. The cost of the class can be paid for upfront with no requirement to pay.
Okay, so I hope everybody out there heard that. That is free money for education and training. And I don't want you to forget that. The one thing I wanted to ask you before we get into the first step of this, though, is accreditation, because that's the other piece of this. You know, not every school the state has some kind of review process to make sure that these schools are delivering what they say they will, right? Can you just talk about that, or where we would find out if the program we're interested in is accredited or not?
Yeah, well, so there's actually two separate things. There's accreditation, which is done by private third-party entities. And then there's state licensure. And the state's license degree granting programs, and then other parts of state government also license and regulate non-degree, sort of more career-oriented training programs. And in both cases, there are lists of which schools have been licensed by the state. For degree granting programs, traditional colleges and universities, including community colleges that do many job training programs, their licensure list is available at the Office of the Secretary of Higher Education under licensure. and you can put their website up. And for private career schools that are training usually in shorter term classes that are not degrees, not academic, but lead directly to jobs, they're licensed by the private career school unit of the New Jersey Department of Labor and Workforce Development. And you can find that link as well and put that website up. And you can just get a list. That's called the eligible training provider list of every school that is eligible for state funds for those job training funds. And then separately from HESA for our funds under the TAG program, the Tuition Aid Grant Program that pays for college, our TAG website has the list of all the participating schools, and we'll give you that website as well.
Great. So everyone, we're going to have those links on the Instagram page so you can find them easily. All right. So thank you. So now we're at the doorway of this whole application process. Can you tell me what we do first?
Yeah, the number one thing that is the gateway to all financial aid is the free application for federal student aid, the FAFSA. We use the same, even though it has the word federal in its name, we use that same application. So you don't have to do two applications for state aid. So federal and state financial aid both use the same application, which is online at www.fafsa.gov, FAFSA. That is a way of getting information about the student. And if the student is a dependent student, if they're usually under 24 years old, if the student's parents' family financial need, so that we're trying to use the limited dollars that we have to help those who have the greatest need to get some help paying for post-secondary education. It looks at income and it asks for tax return information. It asks for information on assets, money you have in the bank and other things you own. And it asks for information about the household, because obviously a family with more people in it, the same amount of money doesn't stretch as far when you have to feed more people and house more people and clothe more people.
Sure. And
pay for more people's college. And so a family of 6 is not treated the same as a family of 2. And so all of those questions are in the FAFSA. It also has places to talk about other need-based programs. So, if the family is receiving public assistance in various forms like SNAP food benefits or Medicaid or any of the other programs that are evidence of obviously financial need, that's included on there as well. Now, when you talk about income, if you have filed a U.S. tax return, the FAFSA has a way to go out to the IRS and actually import in the tax return. And so while it's easier if you've got a copy of your tax return in front of you, you don't have to have it. You can actually pull it in off the internet right from the IRS and have it fill in the blanks of your FAFSA. So we have workshops that we do here at HESA to help people get through the FAFSA form, because it's a lot of questions that if you've never answered them before and you don't know which information to have, you might want some coaching on that. And so we have some videos, and we also have some direct, now we do them by Zoom, but we used to do them in person, someday in person again, workshops to help people fill out those forms, because you've got to fill out the FAFSA to find out what financial aid is available to you. The number one thing we hear from people is thinking, oh, there won't be any aid for me. But that's not true. There are a lot of people who are surprised to learn how much financial aid is available. They only find that out after they fill out the FAFSA. You have to do the FAFSA first.
Okay, so everybody, you've heard this. If you want to qualify for free money from the state, you've got to fill out your FAFSA, and that'll help you get started in the whole process. And the next part of the process is the fabulous Community College Opportunity Grant, right?
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. So the FAFSA determines financial need, but it also just finds out your income. And right now in New Jersey, families whose incomes is $65,000 or less a year can qualify for free, tuition-free community college. And that includes all forms of education they deliver at New Jersey's 18 county colleges, community colleges. Those schools have programs that are a full 2-year or 3-year associate's degree, but they also have steps along the way, what they call stackable credentials, which are shorter term certificate programs, which are part of a longer term associate's program. You can get funding just for that first credential. Maybe that only takes 9 months or 6 months to get. And it's a step along the way of ultimately getting your degree, but you can get funding in each of those phases. And so the free community college, which was started by Governor Murphy in 2018 under this community college opportunity grant that we administer, provides funding that fills in the gap. If the student has financial need, we first apply all of the other financial aid. And then if there's a gap left to finish paying for tuition, we pay the remainder. And so the student pays nothing. And they have no tuition, and we cover almost all of the fees. We basically cover all the general fees that people universally pay, that all students pay, the basic fees for registration, those kinds of fees. They're all covered. And so the student still has some liability. They still have to pay for books. They still have to pay to get to and from school. They still have to pay for food and housing. There's a lot of costs of going to college that are not part of tuition and fees. But what we're doing here is saying you can afford this because tuition and fees will be free. The number one issue we see is with awareness. We see that students, because even if they fill out the FAFSA, even if they know that there's aid available for them, they don't believe that it will be enough and that they're going to have to take out debt and they're going to have too much cost. And so then they don't even investigate what they could learn and what credentials they could get that could help get a better paying job. When you hear that it's free, that cuts through that concern and makes it clear that there's a commitment, there's a promise in New Jersey that if your family income is $0 to $65,000, adjusted gross income, which is the amount that's on your tax return, you can find it right on your tax return, adjusted gross income. If you have a family income of less than $65,000, community college in New Jersey will be tuition and fee free.
So what if your income is above that? Like what if it's 75,000?
The program currently does have that eligibility cutoff. It covers more than half of all the students at the county colleges today. But it is true that there are families in New Jersey with incomes higher than that. They're not able to receive this aid, and they're probably not going to be eligible for other need-based aid because most of the need-based programs cut off financial need below that line. But there are other ways to pay for college. There are other outside scholarships. We have a scholarship for New Jerseyans who've done very well in high school, right out of high school. If they are in the top 15% of their high school class, they can go for free to a county college under the New Jersey STARS program. Okay. And so we do have that program. We have another program called the Governor's Urban Scholars for students coming from 14 cities in New Jersey that graduated in the top 5% of their high school class. And so there are other programs New Jersey offers, and then the school itself. The first thing you should do is fill out the FAFSA. The next thing you should do is talk to the college financial aid department because they often know about other sources of aid, including aid that the school itself maintains that they raise money for, that is not state money.
What do you recommend as the next step someone should do if they've got an income, adjusted gross income over $65,000, and they've exhausted their hunt for grants? What sort of loans does the government offer that they could explore before going into what I would call consumer debt, which is the one that we most want to avoid due to its expense?
If it's an accredited and licensed degree program that is part of the federal Title IV, that is the federal financial aid policies, those programs, which is everything at all the county colleges, all the four-year public schools, a bunch of different private institutions, and a lot of career schools are eligible for federal student loans. And you want to go to federal student aid on the web directly. They are direct loans from the federal government. You do not want to go through a third party. The very first thing you should be doing is getting a federal direct loan. It's also sometimes called a Stafford loan. That is the loan with the best terms for the borrower. It has a super low interest rate, below 3% these days. You don't have to pay payments while you're in school. You can defer those payments until you get out of school. There's a grace period for 6 months when you get out of college that you don't have to start paying right away. And it has what they call income-driven repayment option, so that after college, if you're making not as much money as you would have hoped, your payments will be affordable because there'll be a set percentage of your income. And if your income is low, you'll have low monthly payments. If your income's higher, you'll have higher monthly payments. And that's your option. You don't have to pick that plan, but that plan is available like an insurance policy against the possibility that right after the course is over or the degree program is over, you're not earning everything that you were hoping to earn.
So I guess the final thing I wanted to go over with you today is the NJ Dreamers program.
Mm-hmm. So in 2018, Governor Murphy signed a law expanding state aid to the population we call New Jersey Dreamers. This is the same population that 5 years earlier received in-state tuition charges for the public colleges of New Jersey. So we finished the job, and now they also can receive state financial aid. A New Jersey Dreamer is defined in terms of attachment to the state. It's someone who, while they may have undocumented immigration status, has lived here for most of their childhood. In many cases, this is the only country and sometimes the only state they've ever lived in, even though they came here as children without legal immigration status. And so they spent at a minimum 3 years in New Jersey high schools, in most cases much longer than that, in the public school system. They also graduated from a New Jersey high school or received a New Jersey high school equivalency diploma. And they are able to and willing to do whatever they have to do as it becomes available in the future to regularize their immigration status. If they are admitted to a New Jersey college or university, they can now receive state aid. And we've been doing that now for more than 3 years. There have been hundreds and hundreds of students, several thousand so far, who have qualified for state aid under this provision. It's important to know that once we've made this definition of at least 3 years in a New Jersey high school and a high school graduation, they're then treated like every other student. They have to qualify for aid the same way, including proving their income or their parents' income if they're a dependent student under age 24. They have to meet all of the other requirements of the grants and scholarships. And many, many, many students have met those qualifications. It's also important to point out that this was done in a way that did not take any financial aid away from anyone else. Everyone who qualifies for financial aid was able to continue to qualify for that same amount after we expanded to this new population. So this is recognizing that a group of students who we have educated in our New Jersey public schools, who the taxpayers have already invested in, and who are contributing members of our society. And again, this is for many of them the only country they've ever known. They were brought here as children. they are going to be part of our community, we should help them continue to advance their lives and careers through post-secondary education that will make them an even more valuable contributing member of society. The other thing I just want to say, as I said, we were looking at people's income for need-based aid. And what you find is that the population of New Jersey Dreamers and their parents who are supporting them financially, who may also be undocumented immigration status, we have to verify their income. And what we find is there's a lot of hard-earned money in these families where people are struggling, but they are putting food on the table and paying rent and paying taxes in New Jersey as undocumented families. These are families that are part of the fabric of our community. We can tell because we have to verify their income for need-based aid, and we can see that while they may be lower income, they're not zero income. They are working very hard, often at many very hard, difficult jobs. And so it is a terrific thing that we are able to help their children advance their careers and go to college in New Jersey. Governor Murphy set out 2 years ago a state plan for higher education, and it sets an overarching goal that we try to get a greater percentage of our population to have recognized post-secondary credentials, degrees that will help them get good jobs and will help our businesses create better jobs and grow. But our goal is to get in the next 4 years up to 65%. So we got a ways to go from 57. 65% of our working age adult population to hold a high quality credential. And the only way we're going to get there, and this is any kind of post-secondary credential that's recognized by employers and asked for by employers of the people they want to hire. And the only way we're going to get there is if we tap the talents of all the people in the state of New Jersey and give people opportunity. And that's where Community College Opportunity Grant, Tuition Aid Grant, STARS, the expanding financial aid to Dreamers, all of those fit into the broader goal of 65 by 25, 65% of our population having a high quality post-secondary credential by 2025.
Thanks for listening. For more information and links to the resources discussed in this episode, please visit us on Instagram or Facebook at Careers Without 4 Years. Take care.